Hi guys, welcome to Facebook Live. I'm your host, Rose.
And I'm your host, Lauren.
And today we're going to be going over what you need to know about the Child Development Associate Credential. We have a very special guest here today. But before we jump in, before we introduce Theresa to everyone, Lauren, want to go over a couple of do's and don'ts for today?
Sure. So please do comment any questions or thoughts you have as we're chatting today. Theresa is such an expert in this topic, so we have a lot of good opportunities to pick her brain and get some knowledge from her. But don't share any personal information in the comments, please, because of course they are public. If you are a current student and you do have a more specific question, you can always call us at Student Services at 1-888-427-1000. If you're not a student yet, but you're thinking about it, you can call our admissions department at 1-888-427-6500, and they would be happy to talk to you about a career in child development or anything else that you are thinking about exploring. And if you have any friends who would be interested in this topic, please share this with them, tag them in the comments, or share this to your own Facebook, and spread the love a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great opportunity if you're out there trying to explore which career path you should go on, or if you want to change careers and you're a graduate or you're a student and you're like, maybe what I'm doing, maybe I could add a little bit to it. This is a great time to learn a little bit more about our early childhood education programs, and we have an expert here. And while we're on the topic of our expert, Theresa, nice having you today.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, thanks. We would love to hear a little bit about what you do at Penn Foster and, things along those lines.
Okay. Well, I am a full-time instructor here at Penn Foster. I cover all three of our schools, the high school, the career school, and the college, under the ECE umbrella. So we do have programs in each one of those schools. So my job primarily is to assist students. And along with my partner, Sarah Owens, we do some curriculum revision and some things like that, and just help students with assignments as they go through their career. We also do some video webinars to get students introduced into the program, and then of course to supplement the material that they receive as part of their self-study materials.
It's so nice to have an instructor on the show. I feel like it's so great for everybody out there to get to know one of our instructors and to really understand how much you guys truly do care and how much, because the online learning process is a little different, I think, for a lot of us. But in today's world, it's becoming a lot more common situations and scenarios like what we're experiencing right here, right now. So it's just really wonderful to have you here and for everyone to get to know you out there.
Yes, and Theresa, you have so much experience in this field. Can you tell us a little bit about that, because it's a lot?
As I tell my students in the new student orientation when I introduce myself, I am a 41-year veteran of this field. I have done everything from being a teacher, a director, an owner, a consultant, a trainer, and I also say chief cook and bottle washer, master diaper changer, and van driver. I mean, everything that has ever had anything to do with early childhood, I have done it. So I started out as a classroom teacher, totally by accident. This was not my chosen field. I started off as an elementary ed teacher with no job prospects in the area where I lived. So I took this little temporary childcare position, and I have not left in 41 years. I truly am very passionate about what I do. And now I am just very passionate about sharing my world experiences with our students.
It's a really great point that you make. Sometimes we think we're getting on track to do one thing and we end up somewhere else completely. And it's fun to, talk to other people who have explored that. Like you're like, oh, I'm going to do this step A and then I'm going to go immediately to Z and I'm going to stay at Z. But that's not usually the way that it works. There's a whole alphabet in the middle.
That's right. That's right. But you know what? I would not change any of it. Even though in our field we still are sometimes referred to as not real teachers, we are very much, and I think the pandemic has really shown that ECE professionals are frontline workers. Had it not been for some of our folks in the field, a lot of other frontline workers would not have been able to do their jobs.
Right,
So
absolutely.
it's important to remember that, yes, what we do is very, very important. We don't just sit and watch children all day long.
Right. Well, it's definitely very much more hands-on, and you're helping, like you said, child development specifically. You're developing
Right.
a child's growth, which is a lot of, that doesn't just happen,
Right.
There's a lot of expertise involved.
Exactly.
Speaking of, what is your favorite part about working in the field?
Oh my goodness. It's hard to pinpoint. I think probably right now, my favorite thing is that when a student really gets it and understands their importance in what they're doing, it is one of the most valuable things that I can have now as a professor, is just really being able to guide this next new generation of workers, and benefiting from my experience and how things have changed over the last 4 decades in our field. And so there's some exciting things happening on the forefront in our field with our government. And again, coming from the pandemic, understanding the importance of what we do. So we are really looking at universal pre-K and some things like that right now that have been in the talks for decades, but nothing's ever been done about it. So I think that probably is my second favorite thing, is advocacy, is really just speaking up for the field and how important it really is.
Yeah, I can speak as someone who tried to homeschool a 7-year-old during the pandemic, and it was definitely a challenge. And it definitely, as I'm sure many of you watching can relate to. I know Rose mentioned today, we really are here to talk about the Child Development Credential and other early childhood education programs at Penn Foster and the careers that these programs can potentially lead to. So to kick off that discussion, can you start by telling us what a Child Development Credential is?
Okay, the Child Development Credential has been around for 46 years. So it's not anything new, but it has, like everything else, has gone through phases and reformation and all of that. But basically, it is an entry-level credential that has been used. It's the only national credential we have to get the folks who are in the field currently to a professional standard. So it holds them to a high quality understanding of what it means to work in the field. And so when the credentials started, we didn't have programs with ECE. We didn't have college degrees in early childhood. It was K through 12th grade. And so now we have evolved to where this credential is being nationally recognized, and is the first step in really the career ladder for early childhood.
I would think for most parents, and I know I'm not a parent myself, but I'm surrounded by a lot of parents, and finding qualified people to care for your children is so necessary. The more credentials you have, the safer you feel, the more training you have. So this is a very interesting, specifically this credential is very interesting as far as alleviating those anxieties with parents looking for the right fit.
Absolutely. And that's kind of how I got started with the CDA Council, in that when I owned my own program, it was just such a need to educate the folks who were coming in to work with our children. And so I just said, hey, I would like to start teaching my staff how to get the CDA credential. And from that point on, I have worked, pretty much hand in hand with the council. I work as a PD specialist with them, which means I'm a person that can go out and do site visits to, guarantee that somebody who's a candidate can, or not guarantee, who's a candidate to get the credentials. So, I pretty much work all sides of it. And so it's a very, very important first step for folks wanting to start this career.
So to get started in a career like this, some education and training is likely a good step.
Absolutely.
So can you talk a little bit about the Penn Foster program and what students can hope to learn, and what makes the Penn Foster program specifically stand out, and really what about this program really helps students prepare to be ready for these kinds of jobs?
Right. Well, Penn Foster does not give the credential. The credential is awarded by the Council for Professional Recognition. However, Penn Foster, we have partnered with the council, and our training program has undergone gold standard review with them, which means we have their gold standard stating that our program is high quality. They've reviewed our curriculum, all of our assignments, and all of that. And so we have their gold standard. So those are two very important things that we have at Penn Foster that not many programs have. It's relatively a new thing. And as partners, we have direct connection with the folks at the council to make sure that we are offering our students, the most current, up-to-date, and we get support from them as well. So to get started, with us, it's basically just a matter of meeting the requirements, of course, of registration. And what we do in this specific program in the college is we walk the student through the entire process of obtaining the CDA credential. The council has a handbook. We provide that handbook to the students as part of their courses, and then we walk with them through the entire process, all of the pieces that they have to write, all of the resources they have to collect, and at the end, they have a portfolio. And so when they finish our program, the only thing they have to do then is contact the council and apply for that credential.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know about how long, being that, so we're an online school and it's go at your own pace and it's flexible and it's all those wonderful things. Do you know how typically, the length it takes to earn that credential for most grads from start to finish?
We give our students 15 months to complete the program.
Okay.
And it's very doable in that amount of time. A lot of our students will finish early. Because, we have set it up so that they can quickly move through most of this process. But, we also have leeway, things like pandemics come along and people have to take breaks and that kind of thing. So we do work with all of our students in completing it. But, a year to 15 months is a good amount of time for that.
And is that for graduating from the program, or is that also with earning the credential? And
that is graduating from our program. The credential process is a whole nother ballgame. That process right now, again, because of the pandemic, they've just started doing virtual visits so that the student can be observed in their program. So visits were put on hold for a while. So when everything's working normally, once that application for the credential has been put in, they can expect about a 3-month turnaround.
Oh, that's great. So really, in like a year and a half, you could have a totally new career.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible.
And the wonderful thing about when they get their credential is then they can then, if they want to go ahead and pursue their associates with us, that credential takes the place of the field experience in the associate degree program. So they can transfer that credential and it's not wasted time or anything like that.
That is great, because I would think that, especially in this field, like we were saying, anxious parents, wanting to make the right choice for your children, the more education you have behind you, the more people are going to feel like, this is the person I want to be with my kids for so many hours a day.
And many states are now requiring the associate degree and not just the CDA credential. So we're going to see that bump up. Generally in our field, we kind of tend to follow what Head Start does. And Head Start is now requiring all of their teachers to have bachelor's degrees. So we're going to see this bump up. And so again, getting a leg in, starting with the CDA credential and then moving up into the associate degree is just one of the best ways to get started.
Yeah, that really does make it a lot easier, I think, instead of it
Mhm.
being this big, overwhelming,
Right.
you have a 4 to 6 year commitment sort of thing. You
Right.
start with something
Absolutely.
smaller, be able to
And
enter the
that's,
field and then build up. Yeah,
and that's the intent here is that we want to, you can stop at the CDA and be perfectly fine. But the idea is, like you said, the more education you have, the more qualified you're going to be. And in our field, I hate to say this, but it is, about pay. So pay is going to be directly linked to the amount of education that you have.
Right. And that, I mean, that does make sense. You put in what you get out usually,
Right.
So,
Absolutely. And so, yeah, so it's, unfortunately, I hate it. I don't like that it's linked to pay, but, you know, we understand. And I have a doctorate. My mom, I'm old. And so my mom is 82. I'll give you a little clue there, but she always says, I just don't understand why you've spent all this time and all this money on this degree and you get paid nothing. And you're not in it for the money. In all honesty, you're just not. If you're really dedicated to this field and have a passion for it, you're in it for the kiddos and the families.
Yeah. Now, you said you had your doctorate?
I do, yes.
Wow, that's very impressive. That's a lot of education.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, it was quite a feat. So yeah, and I took the long path. I just completed my doctorate about 3 years ago. So yeah, it's
Oh, wow, congrats.
yeah, thank
that's
you.
amazing.
But it was a goal that I had, and our field again is kind of lacking in that area. And it's the same thing. No matter where you want to be in your career, the more education you have behind you, the more quality, most of the time, the more quality the program is going to be. And so, one of the things that I enjoy most being here at Penn Foster is to be able to use what I've gained either through experience and education to support our students and support our programs.
Yeah, you really sound like you couldn't be more of an expert.
I say that, but sometimes I hear student stories and I'm like, okay, that's a new one on me. I've not heard that before. I mean, we're lifelong learners. We learn something new every day. And I tell my students this all the time. We're not finished learning. We still learn. I learn from students all the time. Hopefully as much as as they get from me. So it's kind of a give take thing, but yeah, we're always learning, and kids aren't really changing, but society has changed, obviously. And so and the way that we're approaching children right now has changed, and so that's going to create new paradigms and pathways for us. So our field is still evolving. So we need to be on top of it and be current.
Yeah, being somebody who loves learning definitely sounds like an important quality in somebody who wants to pursue a career working with children. What are some other qualities or personality types that would do well in this profession?
You have to have patience. You have to be able to let things roll off your back. And you have to be accepting of messy. Because messy is what children are all about. Everywhere you go, anything you do with them, everything's going to be a mess. So if you are a neat person who likes to be very, not necessarily unorganized, but you just have to be able to accept messy. Because that's what it is. And as we go forward in our field, we're taking a look back at, a lot of times we say that we've taken play out of childhood, and we did. We started pushing down academics. And so now play is coming back into the picture as an important aspect of early childhood, and that means messy. So, you just really have to be able to be, of course, you have to be nurturing and patient. And so if things, one of the things I ask students all the time, what bugs you about little children? And they'll say, this, that, or the other. And I'm like, this may not be the field for you. If you have that many things that really bug you about children, because that's what children do.
Right.
They cry, they whine, they vomit. I mean, we have to be realistic about what's going to go on day to day. And I've had several employees go through the field and say, "Hey, I just didn't realize how hard this was." And I'm like, "Yeah, because you think we just sit around and look at the kids all day, and it's
right.
not." You have to have octopus arms when you work in this field, because you have to be very aware of your surroundings and what's going on. And so these are some of the things that we really enforce to impact students in the program to understand what they're getting themselves into. I hope I answered that question.
Oh, I think you did a really great job answering that question. For me personally, I have a nephew who's 4. And just that one 4-year-old, it's such a handful. Absolutely. I can't imagine a room full of children, but my sister has 4 children, and she also works with children as her career. And it really just seems like, if you love kids and you love to nurture kids, and you, like you said, don't mind getting messy because that's the nature of kids, then it's such a rewarding place to be. I know that my sister is so happy working with children, and also I think it kind of keeps you young a little bit,
absolutely.
Allows you to play and find your playful side. So it is a very cool and it's such an exciting age, like young children. It's such an exciting age to work with because you see them discovering who they are and their abilities.
And that, that's a very good point, because we are all about brain development. And so I tell students, you're not early childhood teachers, you are brain developers. So if you look at it that way, next time you go to a party and somebody goes, "Oh, you just work with children?" No, I develop brains. And I think that that's important because they don't understand, even though the research is out there and we know the research says that the first 5 years are the most important years, they tend to just kind of overlook that. And so, no, we're very important in the lives of young children. And the first time that a child brings you a dandelion from outside, you put that thing in your pocket and you say, "Thank you so much," because that's what it's all about. You can see their minds thinking and working all the time. And I think that's the joy that I get from it. Just the same as when I see the students click with some of that stuff as well.
Oh yeah, it's a multi-layered.
It really is
joyful experience for sure.
It is. It really, really is. Because when I can share that experience of how much excitement I got from watching children learn something and get an idea, and then the student makes that connection and they're like, "Oh yeah," see, that's just double reward for me.
Yeah, and you're right about how that up into the 5-year mark is so important, because that's a lot of times when professionals like you, they can kind of see what's going to form the child going forward. So like if there's any learning disabilities and things like that, usually those things being spotted happen earlier. And
absolutely.
That certainly isn't a babysitting job.
No,
absolutely. That is a very important, and you need to have the skills and training to be able to recognize those things, which are, make a difference in the child the rest of their entire life. So it's very important work.
As a colleague says frequently, I have yet to sit on a baby in my 41-year career. So we do not babysit.
Right. Yeah. So speaking of, Lauren, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, well, speaking of it not being babysitting, what environments or types of careers can you have with some education and credentials in childhood development?
There is really more opportunities out there than people might think. It's not just being in a classroom in a child care center or a preschool or even an elementary school for that matter. We have folks out there who are doing things like becoming early interventionists. So speaking to the point of identifying developmental delays and such. So with these degrees, you can actually start going into the field. We need licensing agents who are have the educational background in the field. We have a lot of licensing agents across our country who don't have a background in early childhood. So how can you go out and maintain a program and say that they're doing well if you don't have that background? So we need folks in that area. We need folks to maybe start going into play therapy. Play therapy is going to be a very big thing, I think, coming soon. Especially we've found from the pandemic that our youngest children are starting to go through some PTSD. So from being pulled out of school suddenly and not understanding and not being able to know why that was. So play therapy and being like I said, early interventionist and curriculum coordinators and things like that, that are teaching is very, very important, and I don't ever want to deter from that. But there are so many things that you can do with an early childhood background. I often say that, when I went for my undergrad, I didn't know anything about early childhood. I mean, we didn't study it. Children didn't exist until they turned 6 and went to kindergarten, as far as that was concerned. So really just having that knowledge. I've had, folks ask me to speak places before I got my degrees. I mean, it's just having that experience and that background. Really, sometimes people are looking for that. Pediatrician offices sometimes just like to have people who know early childhood backgrounds. So, there's just a plethora of things that folks can look into. We have on our Penn Foster early childhood learning pages, learning resources pages, we actually have a video that was done by Sarah Owens and my predecessor, Katie Walsh, on the careers that you can choose for ECE. So that video is available on our learning resources pages. So, there's just so many. It's not conforming, but again, I don't ever want to detract from the importance of having a good qualified teacher in a preschool classroom.
Yeah,
for sure.
What about having your own business? Is that something that this credential could help with?
Absolutely. We do. We support 3 of the credentials that the council provides. We support the infant toddler, the preschool, and the family home care. So we do, I think more so than many colleges or schools, support the family home businesses. We have a couple of programs that will give the students the option to focus on the family home care. So we give them some background on how to do that and how to run a business. I wish we could give them more, but we do at least introduce them to that subject and getting them to understand that they are just as important as a center-based program.
Right. That's really interesting to know that piece for sure. It just gives more options.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? Of all of my 41 years of career, I spent 6 years as a family home preschool provider, the best years of my life. Yeah. I mean, really, they really were. I enjoyed them so much more than I did being in the center-based programs. I don't have any regrets, but I mean, my years as a family home provider were just wonderful. And it really allowed me to do what I do best.
Yeah.
There's so many skills really that are useful through anybody's life if you're around any children at all ever.
Right.
In
Absolutely.
This program, which I think is most of us are around children in some capacity. So it really is a very interesting kind of peek into the career. And I've found that so far, I mean, I'm just blown away by a lot of this information. It's very, very cool.
Yes. We have other programs at Penn Foster that map to careers working with children. Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yep. In the high school program, we do have an elective. It's called Pathways to Program Pathways to Early Childhood, or I can never get that. It's such a long title, I can never get it right. But it's an elective of 5 short courses, sorry, that just kind of give an introduction to a high school student who may be thinking about this as a career. And if they want to go straight from high school into a facility will take that and say, oh, well, that's some experience. It's not a full education, but it is an entry level type of, they have some background in ECE. So it is, and a lot of our high school students take this pathway. The last 2 courses are a tad rigorous, but it does give them a good understanding of what they might be getting into if they enter the field. And then, as I mentioned, in the career program, we actually have 3 programs in our career school. One of those programs is the educational portion of the CDA. It doesn't go into the full detail as the college program does, but it does give them the 120 clock hours that they need for education requirements for the credential. And then we have just a child care professional certificate, and then, again, just another training certificate that, again, just kind of gives a little bit of an entry boost to somebody who might be getting their feet wet in the field. And then, of course, in our college, we have this undergraduate CDA prep program, and then we have the associate's degree.
I think the Penn Foster pathway, the high school pathway, is so interesting because if you're going to finish, if you're looking to complete high school, you might as well get a leg up towards what you want to do anyway.
Right.
And as far as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's any additional cost for a pathway program.
No, it's an elective that the students can select. And so if they do, I think Vet Tech also has a pathway program, and I think a couple other programs do. So yeah, it's really just kind of a boost if you want to go straight from high school to a career, or at least into a position to get your feet wet and to determine if this is a career that you want to pursue. So yeah, it's really a good starter for those folks who think they might want to go down this path.
Yeah.
And if you're wondering what path might be right for you career-wise, and you want to talk about any of these programs or career options in child development or childhood education, you can always call in and talk to an admission specialist and have more of a personalized conversation about what might be right for you. So again, that number is 1-888-427-6500 if you want to talk through some thoughts.
So just as to close out before our last finishing thoughts, I'm just wondering what advice you would give to someone who was considering these types of careers, working with children.
Be sure that you really, really, really have a heart and a passion for this. A lot of folks will enter the field, and I don't fault them for it, but they'll say, I just really want to do this because I love children. I love children too, but when you work in a classroom with 20 of them, you have a whole different perspective. So make sure, go out and do some volunteer things. Volunteer Sunday school or park programs or camps or something like that, and really expose yourself to what it means to work with a group of children. And then if you've identified that this is a passion of yours, then pursue it wholeheartedly. And don't stop with the associate's degree. Keep on going. And we're here to help with that. We're here to help people get started in this career path. It's important. And we need, now more than ever, we need qualified folks out there.
Yeah, it sounds like the whole field is going to be expanding soon.
I look for some significant impacts to happen here soon.
Yeah, that's good for anybody out there who loves this passion and just is looking for that last thing, I should pursue this. So I think we covered a lot of awesome stuff about the Child Development Associate Credential today. For everybody out there watching, if you have any more questions, don't forget that you can send us direct messages with your personal information. Please don't put it in the comments, of course. And you could give us a call, as Lauren said, Also, if you're a graduate, don't forget to check your email. We have the yearbook happening now. So if you wanted to be a part of the yearbook and you graduated in 2020 to 2021, don't miss your shot. Check your email. And also there might be something fun in there for you to apply for Graduate of the Year as well. So just a couple of announcements about what's going on at Penn Foster. And yeah, I think this has been a really amazing couple minutes. I guess it's been a little bit more than a couple minutes, but you've taught us a lot of really interesting things. And we're really happy to have you today. Thank you so much.
Yes, I appreciate it. No problem.
And thank you all for watching.
Yep. Until next time.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.